Hey everyone, welcome back to Laura Collins, the channel where we break down the most complex military operations happening right now in a way that actually makes sense. I'm Laura, and today we are diving into one of the most tactically brilliant and honestly jaw-dropping drone and missile strikes of this entire war. We're talking about how Ukraine used 5 relatively cheap missiles, a cloud of decoy drones, and a ghost signal that never existed to reach deep inside Russia and hit one of its most protected weapons factories, a factory that sits over 870 miles from the front line, a factory surrounded by S-400 batteries, MiG-31 interceptors, and some of the most advanced air defense systems Russia has. And they did it in 41 seconds. Before we get into it, if you're new here, smash that subscribe button right now, because this is the kind of content we drop regularly, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. And when we get to the end, I want you to answer a question I'll leave in the comments, because honestly, some of your answers are smarter than anything I come up with. Let's get into it. To understand why Ukraine planned one of its most daring long-range strikes ever, you have to understand what Votkinsk actually is. Located deep in Russia's Ural region, more than 870 miles from the Ukrainian border, the Votkinsk machine building plant isn't just a factory. It is the beating industrial heart of Russia's ballistic missile program. This is the facility responsible for producing the Iskander-M, Russia's short-range ballistic missile that has been pounding Ukrainian cities at a rate of 40 to 60 launches per month. These aren't easy missiles to stop. They're fast, maneuverable, and brutally effective against both military targets and civilian infrastructure. But here's what truly alarmed Ukrainian intelligence. Since mid-2025, satellite imagery began showing something deeply concerning. The factory was expanding at a pace that made no strategic sense unless Russia was planning to dramatically scale up missile production. New machine halls were appearing, underground bays were being dug, the kind used to conceal large equipment or finished weapon systems. Production estimates suggested output had tripled compared to pre-war levels, and the expansion wasn't happening with Russian-made equipment. Through a carefully constructed web of middlemen, shell companies, and small untraceable shipments, Russia had smuggled in precision CNC machining equipment from China, Taiwan, and Belarus. Exactly the kind of tools needed to manufacture advanced propulsion systems and guidance components. No single large shipment. Just a steady drip of parts that kept the production line humming while dodging Western sanctions. Ukraine couldn't allow this factory to keep growing unchallenged. The question was never whether to hit it. The question was how. Striking Votkinsk was never going to be straightforward. The distance alone, over 870 miles, rules out most of Ukraine's conventional strike options. Storm Shadow cruise missiles, one of the most capable Western-supplied weapons in Ukraine's arsenal, could theoretically reach the target, but barely. And barely isn't good enough when the approach corridor is one of the most heavily defended airspaces in Russia. Protecting Votkinsk and the surrounding industrial region are multiple S-400 air defense batteries, including fixed installations near Kazan and mobile radar sites that shift position regularly to prevent mapping. These systems are capable of engaging targets at extreme ranges with devastating accuracy. Any fixed, predictable flight route into that airspace would be detected, tracked, and destroyed long before reaching the target. Russia's radar coverage in the region is layered. Long-range S-400 sweeps at altitude, medium-range Pantsir SM systems for closer threats, and MiG-31 Foxhound interceptors on standby at Perm Air Base, capable of engaging targets at over 200 miles with R-37M missiles. So Ukraine faced a brutal strategic puzzle, a heavily defended target, limited range strike assets, no fixed approach route that wouldn't trigger immediate interception. Their answer was elegant and ruthless. Don't find a gap in the defenses. Build one. Design an operation so layered in deception that Russia's own commanders would create the gap for you. What followed was months of planning, signals intelligence gathering, electronic warfare tool development, and the careful positioning of assets across hundreds of miles, all timed to trigger a chain reaction of Russian mistakes in a single 26-minute window. At exactly 5 a.m. on a February morning in 2026, Russian radar operators at Votkinsk watched 28 small contacts light up their screens simultaneously. These were LEA-100 drones, cheap Ukrainian reconnaissance birds roughly the size of a small car, flying low at just 300 feet, moving at 85 knots. Their radar cross-section is tiny, their electronic emissions minimal, just a weak 2.4 GHz consumer-grade control link. On radar, they look more like large birds than serious threats. But 28 of them approaching a strategic facility at once is impossible to ignore. The alarms blare. Two MiG-31 Foxhounds, tail numbers Red 31 and Red 37, launch from Perm Air Base with afterburners blazing, climbing through 18,000 feet at Mach 1.8. Their Zaslon phased array radars sweep the sky. The Foxhound is a masterpiece of Soviet engineering built for exactly this job: long-range intercept at extreme speed. Its R-37M missiles can engage targets at over 200 miles. For slow, low-flying drones, it is absurdly overpowered, but overkill is still a kill. The pilots begin picking off drones methodically. 6 contacts destroyed in the first firing pass, then 4 more. The Pantsir-SM battery on the eastern perimeter joins in with its 57 E-6 missiles. The intercept rate looks near perfect: 8 down, 12 down, 15. The Russian duty officer watches his tactical screen and allows himself a small smile. He notes the drone's weak emissions, their slow speed, their formation patterns, and records his assessment in the log: harassment operation, testing response time. He is right that they are testing response time. He is completely wrong about why. At 5:21 a.m., with 17 Ukrainian drones still airborne and closing within 40 miles of Votkinsk, the MiG-31s were repositioning for a second firing pass. The Pantsir-SM crew had reloaded 2 launcher rails and was tracking 5 inbound contacts simultaneously. Russian defenses were performing well, and that is exactly when Ukraine triggered the second layer of the trap. Sitting in a converted van 620 miles away, a Ukrainian electronic warfare operator had been monitoring Russian radar emissions for 14 minutes, watching for this precise moment. Both Foxhounds repositioned, all sensor attention focused northwest on the approaching drone swarm, nothing looking anywhere else. He opened a software module his team had spent months developing. They called it the Ghost Letter. The Ghost Letter is a signal spoofing tool built from a combination of captured Russian electronic warfare doctrine and signals intelligence gathered from the 2024 Oreshnik test flights over Ukraine. In concept, it is simple. In execution, it is extraordinary. It generates synthetic radar return signatures across multiple frequencies, signatures that precisely match the radar cross-section profile, Doppler shift, and trajectory characteristics of an Oreshnik hypersonic missile traveling at Mach 10 and above, inbound from the northwest at 65,000 feet. Not one signature, 7 simultaneously, from slightly different vectors, as though a full salvo had just been launched from somewhere over Estonia. The lead MiG-31 pilot had his thumb on the fire button, locked onto drone number 18, when his radar screen exploded with Oreshnik signatures. For one heartbeat, he froze, pure frustration, then yanked the stick hard right, slammed the afterburner, and peeled back toward Perm. His wingman followed without a word. The 11 surviving Ukrainian drones pushed forward into completely uncontested sky. Ukraine had just bought 17 minutes of clear airspace using a missile attack that never happened. While Russia was scrambling interceptors and chasing decoys, 5 other aircraft had been quietly flying through the night for 4.5 hours. The FP-5 Flamingo cruise missiles launched just before midnight from hidden positions across the Carpathian region, spreading out along staggered routes designed to avoid radar detection. Each one flew at under 200 feet, threading through the rolling terrain of the Ural foothills using preloaded digital terrain maps and inertial navigation. No radar emissions, no satellite uplinks during the long cruise phase. Just terrain following, patient, invisible movement through the dark. At 200 feet, the S-400's long-range sweeps pass right over them. Terrain features break the line of sight to ground-based radars. The Flamingo is not a flashy weapon. It doesn't go fast. It doesn't carry a massive warhead. What it does is stay invisible. And in this environment, invisibility is worth more than speed or payload. The economics here are striking. Each FP5 Flamingo costs approximately $180,000. Russia fired 6 R-37 Mauser missiles at decoy drones tonight at roughly $1 million each, $6 million spent chasing $140,000 worth of cheap hardware. Ukraine spent a combined total of roughly $1.04 million on the entire operation. The Flamingos themselves cost less than a decent Moscow apartment apiece. At 5:23 a.m., each Flamingo's onboard computer received a single encrypted 0.8-second pulse from a Ukrainian satellite relay, an updated waypoint confirming the repositioned Pantsir-SM's current location. All 5 adjusted course by exactly 3 degrees, almost simultaneously. They crossed Votkinsk's outer security perimeter at 340 knots, engines muffled by the southwestern terrain fold, arriving at the moment when Russian air defenses were most distracted, most depleted, and looking in entirely the wrong direction. 5 missiles, 41 seconds, and Russia's layered last-ditch defenses fighting desperately to stop all of them. The duty officer at the Votkinsk security command post spotted the threat first, not on radar, but on an optical perimeter camera, a dark shape, low and fast, trailing a thin heat shimmer. He keyed his radio, inbound, low, southwest. Too late. The Flamingos had already split their approach, spreading out to attack from different vectors and force maximum chaos across the defense network. The Tor-M2 battery locked the lead pair at 4 miles. 2 missiles launched from the western ring. The lead Flamingo jinked left into a ridge shadow, buying seconds. Lock held. First one intercepted. The second Tor crew pivoted, radar relocking, fired twice in quick succession. Second Flamingo neutralized. The Pantsir-SM crews were swinging turrets wildly, radar overloaded. 57 E-6 missiles roaring off the rails. The third Flamingo exploited a 10-second reload gap on one Pantsir, pushing toward the inner zone. The second Pantsir caught it on the flank. Double volley up, lock reestablished. Third one forced off course and neutralized. The fourth accelerated toward the inner perimeter. Pantsir operators reloaded frantically, ammunition critically low. 3 missiles launched in desperation. Lock maintained, fourth one intercepted. Russia had just stopped 4 out of 5 in a furious, chaotic 35 seconds of overlapping fire, but the missile tubes were empty. The radars were overloaded, and the 5th Flamingo was already inside the inner perimeter at 380 knots and 180 feet, glued to the southwestern terrain fold, the exact ground-level shadow that every deception layer had been engineered to leave unguarded. It crossed unchallenged. At 5:26 a.m., it hit the reinforced assembly bay, delivering its thermobaric and shape-charge warhead into the primary production floor. 1 missile, 1 impact, 41 seconds. 6 hours after the strike, commercial satellite imagery told the story in cold geometry. A 110 by 85-foot breach in the roof of Assembly Hall 4, structural collapse across approximately 40% of the building's eastern section, 3 secondary detonations, consistent with stored propellant or finished missile components, smoke columns visible for over 30 miles. The precision CNC machining equipment smuggled from China and Taiwan over 18 months through sanctions-evading intermediaries, destroyed or heavily damaged beyond immediate recovery. Russia's response came fast and hard. By 9:00 a.m., Ukrainian air defense networks were tracking 80 Shahed 136 attack drones and 40 ballistic missiles inbound toward energy infrastructure in Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Zaporizhzhia. Patriot PX-3 batteries, NASAM systems, and scrambled F-16s intercepted 67 of the 80 drones and 28 of the 40 missiles. 12 got through. Substations went dark. A transformer facility in Kharkiv sustained significant structural damage. But here's the strategic reality beneath the raw numbers. The Russian Defense Ministry will relocate key machining operations within weeks. dispersing them across additional Ural and Volga region facilities. S-400 batteries will be reinforced around Kazan and Chelyabinsk. Mobile radar coverage around strategic production sites will increase, and every Panzer SM redeployed to guard a factory in Votkinsk is one not covering the front line. Every MiG-31 sitting on extended alert at Perm is one not available for strike support over Zaporizhzhia. Ukraine disrupted the production line. It did not sever it, but it proved something far more dangerous to Russia than any single building collapse. It proved that nowhere is truly safe, and that proof alone forces Russia to defend everything, everywhere, always. And that is the full picture of what happened in 41 seconds over Votkinsk. One factory, 5 missiles, months of planning, and a chain of Russian mistakes that Ukraine engineered from the very first radar blip at 5 a.m. Now, here's the question I want you to answer, and I am dead serious about this. Russia now has to defend dozens of critical production sites spread across hundreds of miles of rear territory. Each one needs air defense coverage, radar networks, and quick reaction interceptors. Ukraine gets to choose which one it hits and when, and with whatever deception layer it wants to wrap around the approach. If you were building Russia's defense strategy right now, how would you even begin to defend everywhere against an enemy that only needs to find one gap? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and the most tactically sharp response gets pinned at the top. And if this kind of deep dive breakdown is what you're here for, make sure you're subscribed to Laura Collins, because the next one is already in the works, and trust me, you'll want to be here for it. See you in the next one.